Last week, Stuart Nicholson, Network Resources Director of Zenith Optimedia, has visited Moldova with the purpose of holding a seminar for the staff from Chisinau. During his visit, he found time to talk to allmoldova.com and share his ideas and predictions as well.
What I am doing here, and a role that I perform in many markets, particularly in developing markets, is that it's important for us as a network to make sure that everybody in our network is aware of the processes that we use, the tools that we have, and also to make full use of the knowledge base that Zenith Optimedia has throughout its network. So I'm here for a day and a half to show everybody in our Moldova office everything that we have, all the processes we use, to get them started on using these things as part of their everyday workflow process. So this is really the starting point in making sure that everybody here is using tools and processes in the same way as other members of the Zenith Optimedia network do.
How much do you think the staff will be able to learn in a day and a half?
Obviously there's a lot of information in a day and a half to be imparted, and I wouldn't expect everybody to take everything in, but I'm pointing them to exactly what we have. There's obviously a lot of information that's available after I go in the electronic form of the training material. And it's also very important that someone at the local level drives the process of people integrating a lot of the tools and processes into what they do every day. So the training doesn't stop when I leave. It continues to happen, and it needs, obviously good local management to make sure that this process continues on a consistent basis.
How would you say the company has done so far in Moldova?
In Moldova, we've grown very fast. We're now probably number one or number two in the market, and that's been achieved in the space of around 18 months. So we've grown very fast, but we have also successfully recruited our team afresh.
What are the main qualities you look for while recruiting people?
I personally am not responsible for recruiting, but I think where we have been most successful is in a situation where we take on a maximum number of staff afresh as their first job. I think it is quite practical and probably preferential to take on very bright people from universities and train them in the way that we want them to do the work. It is a lot more difficult, although obviously in certain cases it is forced upon us to take on experienced people from other agencies, because the issue that we face there is that they're coming with a set of practices and ways of doing things from their previous company, which we're almost telling them to unlearn, because then, if you want them to work in your way, you want them to adopt the processes and the ways of working and the philosophies of this company rather than their previous one. But inevitably, when you are staffing up, if you're successful in the market and you have new business wins, often it's essential to take on staff that know what they're doing from day one, rather than having to actually train everyone up. But I think there's a balance to be drawn from that.
Not every strategy or rule applies to all countries. How do you deal with the differences?
Things that work in one market don't always work in another. We do our best to actually make available to every country the collective knowledge and best practice and wisdom of our entire network. So, for example, if someone is working in a particular category, they have access to how we might have approached that category in other parts of our network, in other markets, and there will be things that will work in more than one market that we can actually borrow from others. So I think we make the most of best practice, we make the most of processes that will work in any geography, but we put, by the strength of our own local people, the processes are flexible enough to put a local spin on them. So, you know, we have robust things that we know work in more than one country, but we can actually make them work perhaps in a different way to suit the peculiarities of each market.
Can you make any predictions for the advertising market in Moldova?
I think what's happening in Moldova is probably fairly typical of the developing markets. I mean, I think certainly in Eastern Europe, Central and Eastern Europe are the fastest growing markets, both in economic terms and in terms of the growth of the advertising market. So we're seeing much greater inflation in this part of the world as a reaction to the fact that our clients are investing more. So our clients see the Eastern European markets as their best sources of growth for their products and services. What is, however, also happening is that in most of the world there is a change away from mass media towards the growth of more forms of communication. Individuals are consuming media in very different ways, so we're seeing a lot more consumption of web-based activities, of marketing, of mobile advertising on mobiles and on various forms of portable devices. And that is reflected in the way, on the problems that we face as an industry, because it's not so easy now for us to be able to plan what communication vehicles we're going to use, because there's a lot more brand messages around from a lot more channels and platforms, and we can't rely on mass media being a guarantee of that messages will be received and will be acted upon in the future. So it's very difficult. We're more and more looking at consumers rather than just looking at counting heads and how many million people are reached. Now, it's fair to say that in this part of the world, that world has not quite developed. We're still seeing the fact that the internet is relatively low in its penetration, and a lot of these new forms of communication have not yet become fully established here. So, you know, most communication is going on through the old mass media vehicles, particularly through TV. But the new world will come faster than we think. It's easy to think actually everything that's traditional still works here, we can still do things in the same way. Actually, you know, it might have taken 20 years to develop in Western Europe, and it'll be 2 years before everything here is caught up. So the importance that we have with emerging markets is to make sure that everyone in our network is aware of how you deal with these changes, even though the changes haven't yet occurred, so that when they happen, we're in a best place to actually take advantage of the new world.